So next on the list is, I see Mayor Garrett, you came in. So we were going to have you and then Lieutenant Bender go next.
Madeline, thank you for that great presentation. I've seen it and for buying me some time. When Pete reached out to me about this date, I had nothing on my calendar today, and I started my day getting up at 5 o'clock to be at the Capitol for a 7 to 9 subcommittee hearing about cameras in school zones, and then with some OSSOF liaison folks. They had an open city hall at Decatur City Hall. I left there and went to a 2-hour DeKalb mayor's meeting with Senator Warnock's office, and I did an on-site interview at Beacon Middle at 3, and went to the Decatur Business Association Black History Month celebration, and that's where I've just come from. So, but I thank you.
We don't pay you enough.
Right. There is that. I was supposed to have a 4:30 interview as well, and by some, miracle, they canceled on me. I was like, yes. So, but I appreciate the update that Madeline gave, and she mentioned the track and field ribbon cutting. I want to also remind people that it is really important to stay out of that area during this process. So if you'd like to go down to that area, and or you know that your kids or neighbors or people go down there, it's never been officially open, but clearly people have been using it. And so, but we do need the track to cure, and we need enough sunny days for that process to happen, and it may be interrupted, and we have to go back. But we don't want to go back and redo something because somebody walked on it or a dog walked through. We will have signage also about the things that are and are not allowed on the track in the field area. No pets, no bicycles or wheeled vehicles. We have seen dogs out there, and we will have signage to remind folks that it is not a dog park. It is a community and competitive track and field. So, but we're super excited about getting it open, and then the first 66 units of affordable housing that are going in at the same time. It's been an exciting year here at Legacy, but it also has been busy with a lot of things going on. So speaking of federal funding, we did get our first termination letter from the, we had gotten a National Arboretum Foundation grant for $100,000 for assessing our tree canopy downtown, and got notification last week that that grant has been terminated. So we don't know, nobody, and that was kind of the conversation at the office. Nobody knows, what's gonna, what our grant status will be for a number of projects. I got notification this afternoon that the Georgia Department of Transportation Commissioner Russell McMurray is actually testifying tomorrow at I believe it is a Senate hearing on transportation and the need for continuing federal funding for transportation dollars and sidewalks and all different types of funding that we and many other jurisdictions have been able to take advantage of. So we'll sort of see where that goes, but that was kind of the conversation today, was that it's a real period of uncertainty. And I know many of us here know people, may have worked ourselves at the CDC. That was definitely a concern that I relayed to Senator Warnock and Senator Ossoff's office, that we have a lot of people that have lost their jobs, and the people that still have their jobs are they're not sending emails, emails, they're not making phone calls, that they are really kind of just sitting it tight and not saying anything for fear of perhaps retribution. And so I think both of those senators are looking to host some town halls that in sort of a safe space for people that want to come and describe what their experience has been. And when I get that information, I will try to get it out to people. I also serve on the advisory council for New American Pathways, that refugee resettlement organization based in Clarkston, but at the end of the year, they got hundreds of refugees processed because they knew that in the previous Trump administration, they basically cut off letting any other refugees come. And but one of the first executive orders was not only to not let new refugees come, but to completely close down the Office of Refugee Resettlement. And so the money just, it was like the spigot just got turned off. So New American Pathways, as well as many other organizations, have all these people here and don't have access to the federal funding to get them resettled. So I think that, we're all of us in, local government and other, particularly nonprofits, working in communities for housing and that sort of thing, or transportation. We're all just waiting to find out what maybe is going to happen next. But on the good side of things, we did approve 3 new charging stations for EVs at our Public Works building at our meeting last night. 3 charging stations, but we'll have 6 ports. They will be primarily used for, we have, I think an EV at the police department, is that right, a trunk, and maybe one at the fire department, and we have some vehicles at the Public Works Department as well. But they will be public facing, and so we're trying to figure out, we'll try to have them available. There will be a charge similar to what the ones are downtown. You don't pay to park downtown, but you pay for the charging service, and we're working through all of that. And also wanted to let you know that we are beginning our budget process, and some of you may remember that in the last couple of years we've had like grow the garden and put your comments on like a little garden trellis for comments about the budget. This year it's the Galaxy budget engagement, so in the stars or orbs, or I haven't seen it yet, but they will be placed at Glen Lake Park, the Decatur Square, and Harmony Park. So if you have ideas, concerns, questions about the budget, that is the time to, those are looked at and reviewed. You can always reach out to me as well, but as part of the budget process, we really we don't get much public participation with our budget process, and we really are wanting to know what your feelings are. What are some of the things that you support? Are there things that you'd like to see happen, and those kinds of things? So I encourage you to participate in the budget process. We also have March the 4th. I'm sure many of you have sort of kept up with like the traffic calming measures on South Candler. There is going to be from 6 to 7 p.m. a community engagement meeting at the Public Works building, looking at additional like infrastructure changes on, it'll be with Georgia Department of Transportation, that is a state route, going to see if that is an area of high impact in terms of crashes in the city of Decatur because of the speed and the curvature of the road. I think that turn, there have been trees that have ended up, cars that have ended up in trees on the side of the road, and so what makes the most sense to help people slow down and avoid accidents. And then finally, I'll talk a little bit about why I was at the Capitol today and last week. There is a state Representative Washburn, who received a ticket in a by school zone camera, and so began researching school zone cameras and decided the legislation is pretty broad right now as to when, municipalities can run the school zone cameras. So instead of saying there may be some guardrails and let's figure out what works, he said, you're just gonna ban them in Georgia. And so we had him come out and observe on one afternoon. It was a lovely afternoon like today, and he saw all these kids walking and biking, and he said, wow, this is really impressive, but nobody in my district walks or bikes, and they have some school zone cameras, and I think even though he said in the hearing last week, Decatur's doing it right, but overall they're predatory and taking money out of the pockets of hardworking Georgians. So we had a much more receptive subcommittee hearing today with the Senate. I think the Senate side is really looking at, Chief Richards went with me both times, and we provided comments about, he has the data to show that since we ran the speed study in September, and we had, in a week, over 22,000 cars in our school zones before and after school were speeding. Above, and by speeding, I mean 11 miles or higher than, so 36 miles per hour during school zone hours in our school. And with public education, I believe that dropped down to about 7,000, and then we had the morning tickets that people got, and then we implemented the program, and we've had a 92% reduction in speeding in our school zones, and so we think it has been a highly successful program, and that we want to, if they want us to have, we already have limits. It's an hour in the morning and an hour in the afternoon based on when the schools start and end. And we don't run it on weekends. Apparently, I found this out today, that if you have like a school event, they gave the example, if you're giving the SAT in the high school on a Saturday, if you want to run, that's in a school zone, if you want to run your speed cameras, you can actually do that. So we are not running cameras on the weekends. Our chief is so conscientious about this that he will make sure if we get a snow day, he sends an email to Blue Line and says, the cameras need to not run now. They don't work. They're not on when we're on break, like the schools were on break last week. We make sure that, and if anybody gets a ticket that they feel like was issued in error, and by the way, the process is, there's a camera that takes a picture of the person in the car and the license tag. If the license tag is not totally readable, or if that information and doesn't match up on the database, then that ticket is thrown out. If the ticket comes comes from Blue Line to the City of Decatur Police Department, an officer reviews every single one of those before they are sent out in the mail. I had someone last week, a newscaster, say to me, he was like, we're uncovering this. I was like, okay. And he said, what if somebody gets 5 tickets in a month and they haven't even gotten one in the mail yet? And I said, that means somebody drove through our school zones 5 times in a week, going almost 40 miles an hour. So I don't have a lot of sympathy for that, right? So we're encouraged that some something will come out that with reasonable guardrails and that we will continue to be able to use this tool. People say, why don't you park a car there? Well, an unmarked police car is a bit of a waste of a resource, I would think. And we have 22 school zones. We have 5 that have the school zone cameras. We looked at the data where most of the speeding, most of the accidents, and that sort of thing, and that's how those were chosen. 4 of them are on state routes, which means there are sort of additional hoops that you have to jump through and guardrails. So I think we feel pretty comfortable that something will come out that will not, you know, as I say, throw the baby out with the bathwater. Yeah, sure.
I was curious about the revenue.
So
So revenue come back to the city?
it is a 65-35 split. The city gets 65% and the vendor gets 35%. I mean, the vendor made it's a LiDAR technology, is that correct? Yes, the most sophisticated, and Chief said today, it like sort of recalibrates almost like every 30 minutes. I mean, it's really a sophisticated technology. And of course, it is costing them to manage the software, to send the emails, so they're not doing it, they can't run a program without some compensation, but that money goes down as the tickets go down. And the law states that we can only use it for public safety. So we've not spent any of the money yet that has, and I'm not sure, somebody asked me today how much we generated, I'm not sure, I don't know. But I think we're seeing it go down, and we are, we do have some things in mind. They would be for one-time expenses. We don't have flashing lights in all of our school zones, and that would be an applicable expense. And Chief Richards said he thought that each set of those cost between he said don't quote him, so I'm not quoting him, but $50,000 to $60,000. So it is not, because you also have to have the software to, unless the cater makers could help us out here, but you have to have it to where you can put the timers on, and and we need to upgrade some of the ones that we have. So it's not just like hanging some lights out. And my husband says, just somebody can flip the switch off and on. So, so those are some of the additional safety equipment for our crossing guards. And by the way, the city pays for 48 crossing guards and 4.7 miles. So we're serious about protecting our kids and protecting people who drive, people who walk, people who bike, and especially our most vulnerable population. So I wanted to just bring that that I had an interview with an AP journalist this afternoon who said, why are you so passionate about this? And I was like, well, first of all, my community's pretty passionate about it, and second of all, I feel like it's made such a difference. And we had a pedestrian killed on a sidewalk. We had a Beacon Hill middle student that was hit. She was fine, hit and run. We had, our injuries, our crash data shows that the majority of our high injury network is with pedestrians and bicyclists. So I feel like we have a mandate as an elected official and as a city to do what we can to try to prevent people from speeding. I will say the senator this morning said, because there were 2 law enforcement people on the panel, there are senators, he said, people sort of forget that they're breaking the law, right, by speeding through school zones or just speeding in your city. So I appreciated his comments and appreciation of that. So, but besides school zone cameras, I'm happy to answer I'm happy to answer questions about that. Yes.
Yes, Mayor Garrett, I was wondering is there some analysis going on about the speed and traffic on Columbia in relation to the fact that that there's so much usage going on here, that we've heard about all the great programs happening. Is that something that's in process? I mean, I know it's weird for me when I come down on Columbia, and it says go 20 around that curve,
Right.
and then suddenly it says go 35, but I know there's a school crossing right there, and then I know I'm gonna come up on a park area where people are crossing their dogs, and I just feel like I see people pass me and
Right.
hit 40 and go.
Right. So,
Yeah.
it was not identified in our, I guess, our, planning for like infrastructure for, we have a citywide planning effort that we're doing on, overall safety. It is one of the, but I guess the number of accidents or crashes or whatever, on Columbia don't come close, for example, like South Campbell or
Right, sure.
College or something. But, I mean, one reason we're building that path is because we're putting, I think it will help significantly to have the two crossing areas. And I'm guessing they will be with a beacon light so that, you can, I mean, I've seen people blow through those too, right?
Yeah.
So, you always stop, look, and make sure, but I think that will help a lot. And I think and the path will give a lot, just like it is going north, will give you a little feeling of but, I'm happy to, and, Bender is here, he can relay that, and I don't know, when we are, and he can probably tell you more about where we are with, our police staffing, but we've had a shortage, some a little before the pandemic and significant since then. And I understand we have a lot of people in the academy and in the process, but they're not yet everyone out on the street yet. So, but we, the city is, that's one of the things that we're looking at with putting the path in and whether or not we can get some decrease in speeding. And I'm happy to, pass that along and just say, are we looking at, and I think that's one reason that the path got supported to come down is to have that safe, we're really trying to implement plans first that are part of our safe routes to school. And that's definitely a way that kids are getting to and from Tally. And I really push to say we can put that in, but if we don't put crosswalks in, it's not gonna be used, right? So we don't, most of us are not gonna walk all the way up to the light and cross and come down here from,
I mean, I wish the speed limit stayed 25 until it got to Katy Curve. Because
Right.
the fatality rates between 25 miles an hour and 35
Exactly.
miles an hour is significant.
So, and I'm happy to, since we are looking at trying to get residential speed limits reduced throughout the city. Since Columbia is not a state route, it's a little easier to do that. And so I can check on, just checking the speed limit signs and that kind of that disparity if you're going 20 and then it tells you you can.
Then school zone and.
Right.
Yeah.
I will be happy to ask that to be checked. So, any other questions? What a great turnout, so.
Well, thanks for all you're doing.
Hope I didn't tell any fibs
Nope,
up there.
Hello, everybody. My name is John Benner. I'm a lieutenant with the Decatur Police, Oregon's Public Information Officer. So anything you guys see come out in the media that we're talking about, probably wrote it. So if you ever have a question about what's going on, please email me or call me. I'd be happy to tell you. Mayor Garrett hit pretty much everything I wanted to talk about with the speed camera thing. So that was awesome. I appreciate that. Yesterday actually was our first time that we had court for people who wanted to contest one of these citations. And I was there because I've written probably the majority of them. I've clicked on the button to say approve, the majority of these. What I've noticed with almost everybody who pled not guilty, they all said, I didn't know there was a school, I didn't know it was a school zone. And what's interesting is none of these school zones are new. They've all down, the amount of violators are going down every month, which is what we want to see. I was driving on Scout this morning at about 7:30, and you notice traffic slowing down. Like, people will see the cameras and see the signs, and they're like, I need to slow down. I live out in Winnona County. We have the cameras as well, and you notice the same thing. I drive past South Winnona High School every day. Everybody just comes to a stop. They've had that camera for like 2 years now. So everybody knows that it's there, and I think over time, that definitely happens. Mayor Garrett also hit on staffing. Staffing for the police has been an issue for the past few years. 2023 is when it really got bad. We got really, really short. Since then, it's steadily coming up, and right now, I think we are only down to 3 openings total, which is awesome. We do have a lot of people in training, which, if you ever see 2 police officers riding around in a car, one of them is in training, probably the person in the driver's seat. They're learning how to do the job. I have 8 officers currently in the academy. We have 2 different police academies running. So I have 4 officers on different sides of Atlanta going to a police academy. By the time they get out, it takes them about another 4 to 5 months of riding with somebody and kind of learning the job to get released to what we call a solo patrol officer status, where they can actually kind of handle an 911 call on their own, even though we're still kind of holding their hand. At that point, the supervisor's showing up, helping them a little bit on those calls just to make sure they're kind of doing things the right way. Mayor Garrett also hit on something else that I think a lot of people take for granted is Decatur does a really good job of not being as strict as we could, like with the school zone thing. You know, there are agencies where I live in Gwinnett. I mentioned South Winnona High School. They run their camera all day long. So my wife recently got a citation that way, 11:30 in the afternoon, of going 46. It's a 45-mile-per-hour school zone, or it's a 45-mile-per-hour zone. So they ride it for 1 mile over. It's very frustrating that they can do that, and I think that, you know, with the new law, there's going to be guardrails put in place, but I like that Decatur is taking the mindset of let's do it the right way, instead of, you know, what we can do. Sure, we could run it for 8 hours during the day and make all this money. That's not the goal. The goal is to get people to slow down, and I think our goal is working by doing it the right way. So hopefully that helps. As far as crime-wise, this is like the best part of the meeting, because you guys don't have a whole lot going on in Winnona Park, which is great. Property crimes are still our #1 thing that we deal with as a police department throughout the city of Decatur. Entering autos or car break-ins. I know you guys have probably heard it 100 times. If you leave something in your car and somebody walks by it, they're going to break the window and they're going to take said item and go on about their day. We see it more so in like the apartment parking decks, the gyms. If you go, I know it's outside the city, go towards LA Fitness, they get hit a lot. When summertime starts, we'll start seeing them again in like McCoy Park, at First Park, One Lake. Those are targeted places because people want to put their items in their car. Put your stuff away, please. Put it in your trunk, put it somewhere. If you guys see something, please call us. We'd much rather come out and talk to somebody for nothing, because nothing was happening, than to come out because a crime occurred or something was broken into or stolen or something along those lines. But if you guys have any specific questions, I'm happy to talk to you. And I'll be here after you guys get done with the meeting to answer anything you might want to say now.
At one point in time, it was advised that we call the direct line instead of using 911
Sure.
when we're using a cell phone, for fear of getting accidentally directed to DeKalb's 911 center. Is that still the case?
So I think it can be the case if you're on the outskirts of the city. If you go down to Katy, Kern, Columbia, it's possible you could hit a cell tower in DeKalb County and get routed to DeKalb. It happens less frequently than it